Jessi Klein joins me in Studio Q. Hey, Jessi.
Hi.
It's nice to have you.
Oh my God, it's so exciting to be here. This is like the calmest lighting I've ever been on.
I know, it's very soothing.
So
It's
soothing.
very soothing in this studio.
I feel like I can either fall asleep or I'm about to be murdered, and I'm cool with either.
You're fine either way.
Yeah.
You're fine either way.
Whatever happens, let's see where the day goes.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Dope.
So the collection of essays, a lot of it is about the kind of expectations for what it means to be a woman and the way that you perceive you fail at meeting those expectations. Yeah.
Yes.
And so from the very beginning, you talk about being like a tomboy growing up and hearing the voice in your head as the voice of a man. Can you talk a bit about that or what you mean by that?
Yeah. When I was a little girl, I guess we all have like that inner voice that kind of is narrating our day as we move through it, such as like, oh, the lighting in here is nice. Am I going to be murdered? Like that voice. I kind of just always had this like weird instinctive thought that like, oh, this it sounds like a man voice. And I think that was just like a sort of subconscious internalizing of the idea that men's voices are the voices that tell stories.
Yeah.
I certainly wasn't consciously thinking about that as like a 7 or 8-year-old girl, but I think that's how I was maybe processing something that I was perceiving. Then I grew up and went to Vassar College, and I was like, oh, maybe that. But I also watched I watched a lot of Dukes of Hazzard, and you know, I think the narrator of that show is Waylon Jennings. So like there were a lot of male narrators to shows.
I like the idea that that it was like a Southern male voice.
I wasn't
Southern.
Yeah, so, I mean, occasionally, maybe depending on the day. Depending on the day. Yeah, I think it was just the idea of storytelling for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you write that when I looked at what it would mean to become a woman, it all seemed to involve shrinking rather than growing. So again, was that something you were conscious of, like even as a kid, that sort of the entry into the adult world meant that things narrowed for you as a woman, as a creative person in particular?
I wouldn't say it was conscious. I mean, again, it sort of depends, like what age you are where you become aware of these things. I think it just, my for some reason, I'm a little punchy today, but I've been having like an image of remembering, I don't know if you guys had that here, but like the commercials for the Doublemint twins.
Yes.
Yeah. I figured that's a global, they've had some kind of global domination, but like those women or just whatever, women on TV, I was born in 1975, so it's still fairly narrow what women look like on TV, but then it was even more narrow. So I think it was just this sense of slowly getting the idea that if I am I supposed to look like that or behave like that, or those don't seem to be things that feel natural to me at all, And then as I became aware of the processes that I could try to undergo to look that way or behave what I was seeing, the way I thought I was seeing that behavior, it seemed to just involve a containment.
Right, yeah.
Of hairs, thoughts, feelings, fats, cells, molecules. So yeah, maybe not even shrinking, but just containing. Volume of voice, etc.
You've talked about being obsessed with Groucho Marx when you're a kid. So when you talk about that containment, and I think about like that kind of Marx Brothers kind of big explosive
silverware coming out of the coat.
So were you like always a funny performer type of kid? I mean, when you talk about imagining yourself growing up, was it always that sense of you wanted to be a performer or a writer or a creative person in that way, or just big in that way?
No, I was actually very, very shy and very kind of nerdy and academic. No, I wasn't like a theater kid in that way. I was much more kind of bookish. But I did, I think, stewing deep down, I I did kind of want. I was a little more mischievous in my internal, head, and I was also an artsy kid, and I drew a lot. And I remember in second grade, I started drawing naked people in my class, and again, I was kind of like I didn't have a ton of friends, but. And I don't know
You mean
why.
you draw like naked classmates or
Oh, no,
naked
just
people while
naked
you were in class?
Like very G-rated versions of naked people. But I was a really good artist. I was like, I do have a gift. I can draw any animal.
Oh.
That's what's left over.
Right.
But if you want, whatever, I'll draw something at the end and get it on camera. I want there to be proof I can draw any animal doing any activity. But I was drawing just naked people, like not identifiable ones, just
Right, just
humanoids.
naked people,
Yes. And I was like getting it, like other kids were like, oh, and I was kind of handing them out like, oh, like I'm drawing naked people. And that was sort of like a mischievous thing to do. And I write about in the book, we had an amazing principal at my elementary school, and as he should have, he like took me out of class and was like, why are you being bad touched in some way? And I was like, no. And he was like, okay, you're just a perv, run along. So it was like little inklings of that kind of, like I was interested in
And being a little bit subversive.
Sure. Feeling like I was observing things.
Yeah.
But outwardly very shy.
Yeah. And in terms of, comedy, getting into, comedy writing and even, doing stand-up, you've done a bit of stand-up. Were there people in particular you admired? I mean, I know for a lot of women, they talk about Carol Burnett. I believe that Joan Rivers was somebody whose work you really admired.
Yeah, I love Joan Rivers. I think, after the marks, in terms of stand-up, I watched a lot of like early Comedy Central as a young teenager, I guess. And certainly SNL, I was like obsessed. I got obsessed with SNL during a very good period for them. It was like Jan Hooks, who was amazing, and like Dana Carvey and Adam Sandler were on. But Janine Garofalo was someone I was very obsessed with. I remember finding her special, like an early special she did where she was just in like a flannel, it was very grunge, like a flannel top. She was basically in her pajamas on stage with like tights under her short, like, baggy shorts or something, and had her notebook out on her stool. And she was just, she was telling stories. I was like, she was kind of one of the first stand-ups I saw doing more of a storytelling type delivery than a joke type delivery. Both are great, but that was one, and just she was so funny, and I was like, oh, I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was it? I know it took, you didn't do stand-up yourself until you were in your mid-20s.
Yeah, I was like 26.
What was that like? Is it something that you enjoy doing stand-up? I mean, it seems very nerve-wracking.
I loved doing stand-up. I think at best I'm like a hobbyist of stand-up. I mean, now having worked with Amy Schumer and other stand-ups who are, just kind of, I mean, Amy's one of the greatest stand-ups maybe ever. You really have to commit to a lifestyle and doing it every day and doing it everywhere. I never did that, but I did it a lot, and I loved. I never really have had a goal for it. I think I just enjoyed kind of figuring out what I wanted to talk about, and it helped me figure out sort of my creative voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's so different because now you are someone who, you've written the book of essays, but you spend a lot of time in a writer's room collaborating.
Yeah.
Do you prefer that, working with other writers and having people to bounce stuff off of, rather than being the single person on stage with a mic, or?
I like them both. I mean, I certainly like collaborating with people more if I'm bombing. If I had to
you can always blame them.
Hanging out with people in a room to bombing alone, I would pick the hanging out. If I'm killing and doing really well, I'm like, oh, I would enjoy this for a while. Being in a writer's room, working on Inside Amy Schumer the last few years, that has just been sort of a joyous experience that I am so grateful to have had. I can't. People are like, "Is it as fun as?" It's just like been the best job because I'm in a room with people who I think are just the funniest, most brilliant people, and yeah, how did that become my job?
Are you, well, yeah, and are you collectively surprised at how enormously successful it has been? I mean, it's an overtly feminist show, it seems. I'm not sure if that's what you set out to do. It's been called a feminist triumph.
Oh, right. Yep. Feminist triumph. There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is. But I think it came at a time when the show and the sensibility of the show was expressing something that people really wanted to have expressed. So in the clip we played off the top of The Last Effable Day, there's another fan favorite sketch called 12 Angry Men, and it's a parody of the classic film in which a group of claimed actors meet to decide whether Amy Schumer is hot enough to be on TV. And so the show just kind of deals with women's issues, the way that women are perceived, the roles they have to play, and it just really has struck a chord so profoundly with people.
Yes. Wait, and the question though were we surprised?
Yeah, I mean, did you think, like, were you thinking, or was it just, this is our sensibility, this is our experience, this is what we think is funny?
In terms of the creation of it, what you just said, I think, yeah, the show was built around Amy's voice as a stand-up, and Amy's stand-up is very intensely personal and very much focused on her experience. It's been interesting also to kind of see her style evolve. I think she's, even in the years I've known her, I knew her for a few years before the show started. I think Amy and I were good at collaborating together because we were both interested in sort of talking about some of the same things. And yeah, I think just the things that strike both of us as funny in terms of like sex and the awkwardness and discomfort of like trying to present yourself a certain way in a relationship, in the way that all of us can make the mistake of doing it sometime at certain points, even though we know better. We should all be our most authentic, perfect, original selves all the time. I think in dating, everybody at some point is like, oh, I'm a garbage bag, I should try to pull it together. So yeah, I think those were the things that were Amy's concerns, and I shared those concerns, and that was what made us laugh, and what made people in the room laugh. And I think I've been saying this, and it sounds like a cliche, but it's not a cliche. Or it sounds like a cliche, but it doesn't mean it's not true, which is that the personal is political. So, it's those things happen simultaneously.
Yeah. I was thinking about stuff that gets taken up on the show as well as in your book and your collection of essays. And thinking of The Last Effable Day, you have a chapter in the book on how to get older, and you talk about sort of, even though you're not as much of an on-screen person, but just the pressure of being a woman and getting older, and what that means. So how does that play out for you? What are the sort of anxieties you feel, or the pressures that you feel
about getting older?
About getting older, and getting older, and I guess also getting older in the field of entertainment.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I had an agent say to me the other day, someone who I just started working with, and she does work more with actors, and I have kind of a weird. I'm not really an actor. I perform, but I'm not an actor. But anyway, she seemed willing to come on board, but she kind of. I don't think she was joking. We were emailing. Anyway, the upshot of the story, she just was like, "Oh, you should." I had said, so in terms of the parts I would be up for like looking at, I'm like, I think I should play someone in their 50s or 60s, and I'm 40, because then that's probably Hollywood-wise a match. And she said, "Oh, well, that's the first thing we need to do is you need to stop saying how old you are."
Wow.
So, and I feel like if there's one, I've always felt like I will never lie about my age. number one, it's stupid. If anything, you lie the other way. Again, say you're 70 and then you look amazing. Yeah, if you're the person who's like 48 and you're like, I just turned 15, it doesn't ever really work. But I feel like the other way is the one that makes people furious. But yeah, I feel like that is like a political act. Every single interview I do, I work in exactly how old I am. Because, yeah, I think if we all stopped lying, no one would feel pressure to lie anymore.
Yeah.
If we all just said, I am whatever age I am, and I am also slowly marching towards my death, like all of us. Not going to live forever, and that's it. Then I think it would help. So I'm 40 for like one more second. I might turn 41 during this interview.
I promise it won't go on that long.
No. I mean, but it's like my birthday is coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a bit about. I know that a lot of your comedy doesn't address like moment to moment politics. It's sort of but I feel like with this particular election and the sort of the history making of this election with
Hillary versus the monster made the dickless loser made of candy corn.
Yes. And I guess the ways in which so many issues around like feminist issues are taken up in this particular race in a way. The way that Hillary has been, her voice, her hair, her face, her body, her clothes have been almost as though it's like a textbook example of sexism in politics. Like if you wanted any proof, it is there in a daily kind of way.
Yeah.
What have you been watching in this, and what have you been making of Hillary's run for office?
I think like many friends down under, my head is exploding on a daily basis, and I've actually been having some really deep conversations with a lot of people. I don't think people are talking about how truly depressing it is. Not to like bring this room down, but I already told you I'm 40, so that everyone's already bummed out. I think there's the state of the world in general, which is like terrifying and upsetting, and then this election, and the racism of Trump and everything, whatever. I mean, it's all well documented. It's like on a personal day-to-day basis, very depressing.
Yeah.
I think it hasn't, when I talk to my friends about it, we're just all kind of like, are you really depressed? And it's like, yes. And it almost feels like you can't talk about it because it's like, oh, well, politics is politics, but then you have your life. It's like, no, but this is our life. Mm-hmm. I love Hillary.
Yeah.
I've always loved Hillary. I think she's an incredible inspiration. I see the things that she's done that are, I suppose, wrong or imperfect. I think the criticism that she receives, as you just said, is some of it is valid. And then I think there's a huge pile-on to her being a woman.
Yeah.
And if it was a man, most politicians are not perfect and have done some shady at the edges things, and life is about compromises, and we accept the ones who seem to at least be on balance better. I think she's getting I realize I'm rambling. It's a mind boggle.
Well, when you talk about funny and depressing, is it that all of this stuff is coming out, that there's this reaction? Because I think that a lot of those feelings, a lot of the impulses behind, whether it's the racism that's coming out or the sexism or all of that has been there. It's just now it's kind of come to the surface. Or is it that you feel like something genuinely new is happening where people feel more divided? Where things feel more sort of scary and bleak?
I think both. I mean, for sure, there is a segment of the population in the United States that is like pretty overtly racist and sexist, and a lot of that comes from obviously circumstances that are difficult, and white poverty and lack of education and ignorance. And there's a very legitimate beef around, I think, white poverty in the United States. I mean, it could go on. I've been talking about this a lot with friends.
So you mean there was sort of the reactionary response is coming from people who feel like I was promised stuff and the resentment is now being thrown at.
I think there is a certain disrespect that I can understand poor white people feeling. I think I'm going to say something that I think will make people mad, but I was talking about this with a friend of mine the other day. Like the term white privilege, I think has different meanings to different people. I think it's a very legitimate phrase in terms of, I think, how it originated in terms of Black people wanting to point out that there is a white skin privilege. I think if you are a white person who's in tremendous poverty and is having trouble feeding your family, etc., and you're like, what's my white privilege? I'm starving. I see there are things in the United States that we need to talk about more.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hillary is better equipped to deal with all of the problems than that garbage bag filled with dead mice known as Donald Trump. He is not the answer.
For a lot of comedians who do the kind of topical daily stuff, there can be this like release in sort of finding humor in it, being able to sort of like, poke fun or find parody. Is there, sort of in writing for future seasons, the future season of Amy Schumer, or in your own writing, is there an outlet for you to be taking up this stuff? Like, are you finding there is a way to be funny about it or a way to find humor in it?
Yeah. I mean, there's always a way to find humor in it. I mean, it is the old thing of like, well, if I don't laugh, I will cry. And very often doing both. I've definitely done both during this. I mean, I cried watching Hillary's speech.
When she accepted the nomination at the
the
convention,
minute Chelsea came out, I started crying. I do tend to cry once a day, so it might have just been pure coincidence. And I laugh a lot.
I don't know. A sugar crash.
This has actually nothing to do with the election. Yeah. Where are my Godiva mint chocolate pearls I bought from the airport?
But the final thing I want to ask you, do you feel though that this is this is a historically important thing and in many ways a revolutionary thing. Do you feel like this is a step forward for women in the U.S. to have Hillary
be the nominee?
Be the nominee, run for potentially be the president?
Of course, yeah. I got really, I happened to be in a hotel room by myself watching that speech last night, and I literally stood up and like jumped up and down. I am getting teared up thinking about it. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was great talking.
It's a long way from the Doublemint twins.
It's a long. You've come a long way from.
Was she one of them?
That was your feminist triumph. There it is. We did it.
You've come a long way.
We've come a long way. My guest was Jessi Klein. She's the head writer and co-executive producer of Inside Amy Schumer. Her debut book of essays, You'll Grow Out of It, is available now. Jessi Klein joined me in Studio Q.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.